Good morning and welcome to the July 8th special call meeting of the DeKalb Board of Registration and Elections. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask if we can get the roll call.
And I'm not sure who's doing that.
I will call the roll.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith.
I will call it Vice Chair Jester.
Here.
Anthony Lewis.
Here.
Chair Loman Smith.
Here.
Susan Motter.
Here.
And Miss Carly Swift.
Here, changing picture. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. That having to do alphabetical order on the fly in the morning is no joke. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All right, that passes unanimously. May I get a motion to approve the May 6, 2022 special call meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the May 6 special call meeting minutes, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
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 And that also passes unanimously. Okay, we can go ahead and start public comment.
Good morning. I'm going to read the public comment announcement. Public comments of 2 minutes or less may be made live via the teleconference. For those joining the meeting by telephone, please be aware that your phone number may be displayed to the public viewing or participating in the online meeting. Citizens who attend the meeting via the Zoom link may join the public comment queue by raising their hand in the Zoom application, while citizens who attend the meeting via telephone may join the comment queue by pressing pound followed by 2. There will be no comment card, so when you are called upon, please state your name for the record. Also, please be conscious of speaking time so that everyone has an opportunity to provide input in the allotted time. Abusive, profane, or derogatory language will not be permitted.
Thank you very much, Madam Attorney. And as a reminder, again, pound 2 or use the raise hand feature if you would like to provide public comment today. Our first request is from S. Colette Frisk. I will ask her to unmute. If she would like to start her video, she may. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sonia Colette Fricks. I live at 3889 Baya Way, unincorporated DeKalb, 30340. And I just wanted to say 2 things. I greatly appreciate you having these meetings via Zoom right now. I would not have been able to attend otherwise. And I really do appreciate your going out of your way to make these meetings available to the public. And the second thing is I realized that today is a special meeting for challenges to vote. And I just want to say I have complete confidence in you guys to settle this all, figure things out. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your comments. Give me one moment. All right, our next request is from Judy. I will ask Judy if she would like to unmute. She can also start her video if she would like, and please state your name and address for the record. Judy Sofianopoulos?
Yes.
There you are.
Yes, my name is Judy Sofianopoulos. I'm a DeKalb County resident.
I live at 3055 Briarcliff Road Northeast, Atlanta 30329. I wanted to just echo Ms. Fritz's comments about thanking you very much for having this meeting, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. The only other thing I would like to suggest to be worked on is more drop boxes and early voting locations to be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekends as well as weekdays. And again, thank you very much for all your time and hard work.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next request is from Hannah Harris. I will ask Hannah to unmute. If she'd like to start her video, she may. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Hannah Harris. I live at 3892 Holy Cross Drive in Decatur, Georgia. I want to thank the board, as always, for your dedication and commitment to protecting the right to vote in DeKalb County and for protecting democratic processes in our county. Today's meeting for challenges, I ask that the board exercise continued common sense in looking at these challenges. I respect the law, and the state law gives each voter the right to challenge a vote, and I respect that. But I think that challenges should be based on personal knowledge and fact, and not information that is dumped into a person's lap by organizations that are seeking to undermine the voting in a particular community. And so I think when we look at these challenges, we're going to see that it's the same demographic that's being targeted. And I just think that something that transparent, if I can see it, I hope that the members of the board can see it, and we'll look at these challenges for what they are. They're all coming from the same people or person, and they're all coming from the same place. It's not personal knowledge. It's a group attack on peoples of color, college students, and other groups that have been deemed not friendly to certain groups. So I just ask that the board be fair today. If people shouldn't be on the rolls, take them off. But if this is just racial or political, let's leave people alone with their right to vote. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for your comment. Last call. I'm not seeing any additional hands raised. #2 or use the raise hand feature if you'd like to provide public comment today. And Madam Chair, that seems to exhaust all of the current requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metelsky. Okay, we are on our items for decision and the purpose of our meeting today, which is a number of challenges that we've received from 2 different voters here in DeKalb County, and I'm going to recognize Ms. Smith to help us get started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This morning, you have in your packet 2 sets of challenges. 1 through 10 in the packet were submitted by the challenger, Gail Lee, and with the supporting documentation that is also on the pages listed on the agenda. The second set, 11 through 20, were submitted by challenger Roger Wyckoff. And I just wanted to provide a little background on how we prepare for the challenge meetings in our office. Our process is to have registration staff review challenges as they are received in our office. They identify the basis of the claim for the challenge, acknowledge the claim, and provide the challenger with the procedure. And the letter that the challenger receives includes the number of challenges they submitted. Staff sends appropriate notice to the challenge voter, and that is sent via certified mail, first class mail, and if we have an email on file, via email as well. Also, working with the county attorneys, sending the information to them, and then I share the information with the board. And so with respect to the challenges before the board today, the stated basis of the challenges are change of address. And under federal law and pursuant to guidance from the Secretary of State, voters cannot be removed from the voters list based on challenge of address in a challenge hearing. They can only be removed if the state's list maintenance procedures are followed. And so based on staff review, the other information that we have in regards to the procedures and the guidance that we received, the recommendation today for the set of challenges that you have before you from staff is that the challenges are based on, change of address as stated by the challenger, and the recommendation is to reject the challenges.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, so let's go ahead and start and take these by group. If that meets with the approval of my colleagues, my thought is that am I breaking up? Okay, I seem to be freezing. Please be patient.
We do hear you, but you do seem to have a laggy signal.
Okay. So I'd like to break these up and give each challenger their 3 minutes to make their case, give board members the opportunity to ask questions and follow up, and then we can take the vote after that, if that meets with my colleagues' approval. Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Are we going to hear from if they're here, the actual challengers?
Yes, they're going to be recognized next or first.
Okay, thanks.
And then, of course, after they are, we'll see if any of the voters that they challenged have chosen to participate in the meeting today too. So for the first 10 voter challenges, is Ms. Gail Lee present?
Yes, I'm giving her the ability to unmute and start her video. Ms. Lee?
Working on it. My screen just went blank here.
We do see you and hear you.
Okay. Thank you for the hearing.
Yes, Ms. Lee, I just wanted to let you know you have up to 3 minutes to state your basis for the challenges and give us any other information you'd like to share.
Before my 3 minutes starts, I'd like to ask that our consulting attorney, Dave Baker, be allowed to participate if he sees the need to speak on our behalf. He should be zooming in. All right.
Absolutely, that's your prerogative within your 3 minutes.
But as an FYI, I do not see him at this time.
All right, he should be joining us. All right, as has been stated, we are challenging the voter status based on change of residency. The 10 people that are on our list, that are on my list, have indicated through the postal change of address system that they wish to relocate to the state of Florida. And they have given the names and addresses that appear on that change of address form. Then I have submitted documentation from the Secretary of State's office in Florida showing that each of these people is registered now to vote in the state of Florida. And the law in Georgia, Georgia Code Elections 21-217, Article 6, Rules for Determining Residence, A2, says, A person shall not be considered to have lost such person's residence who leaves such person's home and goes into another state or county or municipality of this state for temporary purposes only with the intention of returning, unless such person shall register to vote. Or, and that's or, perform other acts indicating a desire to change such person's citizenship and residence. Now, if you compare the names and the addresses on the change of address form submitted to the post office to what the Secretary of State's office in Florida has said is the person's name and address. They are a match. And also the date of birth I know matches because I have to put in the date of birth in order to get the information from the state of Florida. So for the people watching, I just want to hold up the form that Florida has. It's very official, showing the names and the addresses. Now, we are requesting they be removed from the voter rolls based on Georgia Code 21-229, which states if the registrars uphold the challenge, the person's application for registration shall be rejected, or the person's name removed from the list of electors as appropriate. And that is the basis we are asking for you to remove them from the rolls so that, I mean, this law says if a person moves to another state, they can't be continued to register in our state and vote in our state.
Chairwoman, that's time.
Thank you, Ms. White. Thank you, Ms. Lee. Are there any of the voters who were challenged by Ms. Lee present on the call today?
And if you are present, please identify by using the raise hand feature or #2. If you're on a phone, I do see someone on the phone with their hand raised. I will ask them to unmute. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good morning, friends. My name is Yitzhak Tendler. I received a notice about being potentially challenged. I did move roughly 5 houses down from where I used to live. And so I'm hereby noting that I still live in DeKalb County, still live in the same zip code, still live basically within the same radius of like, a quarter of a mile. And so whatever that means to you guys about the rest of these challenges, yeah, you can take it from there.
Would you mind restating your name, please? I missed it.
Sure. Yeah. The first name's a little tricky. So let me spell it out for you. It's Yitzchok. It's Yitzchak, the Hebrew name. Last name is Tendler. T as in Thomas. E. N as in Nancy. D as in David. L-E-R.
Okay.
And I currently live at my previous address was 1301 Biltmore Drive Northeast, Atlanta 30329, and I currently live at 1540 Beechcliff Drive, Atlanta 30329.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Moved last August. Yeah. Do I need to give you guys anything, or what's my next move?
Point of order.
What's the point of order, Madam Vice Chair?
Is this person on our list of voter challenge here in the hearing today?
I'm going to resume questioning of them on that and see how we can proceed because they're not on the list.
Right, I don't see them on the list, so thank you.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, if you can communicate with Ms. Smith via the chat feature to get your
Madam
spelling.
Chair, my
Yes.
apologies, but he's on a phone. He does not have chat capability.
Okay. All right. Then perhaps Ms. Smith can have a staff member take down his phone number and reach out to him via phone since he's not listed as one of the challengers that we're addressing today.
Point of order. I'm wondering, is he a state challenge? And Ms. Smith maybe can confirm that as well. I don't know.
Right. And
I received from What I received does mention Mr. Smith, the letter I received.
Okay, that's
Says
a
Robert
different,
Smith is challenging my registration as a DeKalb County voter.
okay. Okay, so let's do this, since we're attending to Miss Lee's challenges and the challenger that Yitzhak is referencing. We're not addressing those today, but if Ms. Smith could have a staff member reach out to you, if the number shown on the screen, Yitzhak, is accurate, then we'll have someone reach out to you about that particular challenge and getting that taken
Sounds
care
good.
of, making sure. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you all for what you do.
Absolutely. Okay. Are there any challengers, and they may or may not have the agenda before them, so I'll just do another all call. Anybody who received a challenge from Ms. Lee or Mr. Wyckoff who is present on the call today who would like to be recognized?
And again, if you are one of those, please identify by using the raise hand feature or #2 if you are on a phone.
Okay, so there doesn't appear to be anyone else. Okay, board members, any questions or response to Ms. Lee's challenge or the 10 individuals who are listed there? Madam Vice Chair, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just quick question. I saw that in the interim after or while Ms. Lee was speaking, I think Mr. Baker came on, and I didn't know if he wanted to add anything or if Ms. Lee wanted him to add anything, or if he has any material information to add.
Well, Ms. Lee had 3 minutes to address that. And
okay, well, can I ask him a question? And since I have the floor, am I allowed to ask people questions?
I'm going to check in with our attorneys about being able to, I'm not sure what the procedure is for this.
I could ask Ms. Lee a question, right? I could ask Ms. Lee a question, and so I would just think I should be able to ask her attorney, but I'll defer to our attorney.
Ms. Vander Els, and I know we're trying to sort of abide by kind of courtroom legal procedures, but I'm not sure what the parameters are on this. Can you advise?
Yes, there aren't any legal requirements with respect to the procedure here. So I think it would be within the board's discretion in terms of whom they would allow to be questioned or to speak.
Okay, thank you. So I want to put the question to the board because we've got to, we're establishing the procedure around this as we go in terms of decorum, because we have not been given any guidance other than the law, which is what we'll use to make our ruling. But I'd like to ask the board to just indicate your consent or dissent with questioning someone other than the challenger or challenged voter as a part of this process. How can we do this? Can you just signify your consensus with supporting that? Are you all in support of that? Yes, no?
I'm in favor of letting the question be put to a challenger or their attorney who is present. So that's my perspective.
Mr. Lewis?
I agree. I feel the question should be allowed to question the challenger or the attorney or other people involved in this challenge on the call.
Okay. Ms. Swift?
I'm generally okay with it. I think it should be time bound and the question should be reasonable when asked of whoever we're going to ask questions of.
Okay. Ms. Motter?
Yeah, I'm also fine with questioning Ms. Lee and her rep, though I do caution on the time as we've already given Ms. Lee 3 minutes as previously disclosed.
Okay. All right, so we've got consensus on that. So what I would request is that the responses be confined to the question being asked, since the challenger's time has already been exhausted. And Vice Chair Jester, you're recognized again.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, so my question is to you. Given, I don't know what you heard or didn't hear as part of the hearing as you dialed in. So the recommendation is to deny the challenge based on state law, I think that's what I'm hearing, and the timing of the change of address and how that's supposed to work through state law and procedures promulgated through the Secretary of State's office. What say you regarding those rules? What is your perspective on that?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I was listening on the, I was watching and listening to the proceedings on the channel 23. So before I zoomed in, so I'm up to speed on everything that's been discussed. Just very briefly, I'm very concerned that the board's proposed rules, it basically obviates Section 229. And basically you're saying, oh, we're just going to kind of, that means so many words, just do what's always been done. Just wait for the, every so many years, cleaning up the voter rolls through NCOH to the Secretary of State's office. The problem is that the voter rolls are hopelessly out of date. And I understand the challenge that 229 has put on county boards here to really take on work that, heretofore has been done at the Secretary of State level. And I know that's a challenge for y'all, but with that is the law. And the point is, and so I would obviously I wasn't party to the conversations, but I would disagree with Ms. Smith's recommendation to deny these. I mean, the point is that if you look at the definition of just 2 quick points, OCGA 21-2-217A2 is the definition of what constitutes residency. A person shall not be considered to have lost their residence who leaves such person home or goes to another state or county or municipality in the state for temporary purposes only with the intention of returning, unless such person shall register to vote or perform other acts indicating a desire to change such person's citizenship or residence. So bringing us to these 229 challenges, the burden is on the challengers, but when the board is presented with an NCOA, which is just a threshold, that in itself is not, and Ms. Smith, I'm not putting words in your mouth, maybe that's what you were trying to say to the board, an NCOA itself would not be enough to remove a voter from the rolls, but an NCOA plus additional evidence, such as registration to vote in another state or a homestead exemption in another state, would be enough to meet the definition to show that such person has lost their residence under Section 217. And that is enough to take them off the voter rolls.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. That answers my question about that I had for you. And I want to be respectful of my colleagues and keeping it brief and so on. So I do appreciate your time on that. I don't have any other questions at this time. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Swift, you're recognized.
Thanks. And thank you, Mr. Baker, for your comments. I just want to add some additional context, and our lawyers can hop in if they feel like if they feel it's appropriate. But I don't agree with Mr. Baker's interpretation of the statute simply because it does not account for the full context of OCGA Section 21-2, which sets out the procedure for the state's list maintenance, and it does not account for federal preemption, which requires us to be in compliance with both federal and state law. And so unfortunately, we would need case law. So Mr. Baker certainly is well within his right to work to do that, whether that is filing a lawsuit with the state or whatever mechanism, but there is no, I understand his opinion on that, but there isn't a legal basis. The law tells us what we should be doing in this case. And fortunately or unfortunately, the state's responsibility is to have maintenance. And this is not the change of address. It's not consistent with a basis for removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. And Mr. Lewis, I'm going to recognize Ms. Vanderels and then get to you.
I'd just like to add that the state's list maintenance procedures do contemplate that a voter may move out of the county or the state into another state. And there are protocols for receiving information from a foreign secretary of state and what is required in that regard to remove someone from the rolls. It requires a communication from that other secretary of state with documentation reflecting the voter's signature, their voter application. So I think I just wanted to point that out in terms of this circumstance being part of the list maintenance process.
Thank you, Ms. Vanderels. Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Before I forget, I want to follow up with what Ms. Vanderels just said to us about the state requires information from the Secretary of State from the other state of residence for the voter. Does that and somehow inhibit challenges made by voters of this county based on the registration in another state?
Yes, I think the guidance from the Secretary of State is clear that in the context of a change of address, a voter cannot be removed in a challenge hearing, and it can only be removed or formal action taken with regard to registration by following the state's list maintenance procedures.
Okay. And just another question. I'm curious to Ms. Smith, if we have any information or did the staff check to see if any of the challenged voters have voted recently in any of our elections? I think for these voters, for Miss Lee, most of them registered according to the information she provided us. They registered in another state, as far either in 2020 or 2021. So I was just wondering if they are still registered in DeKalb County, if we have any record of them voting in 2022.
Okay. Madam Chair, can I?
Yes, you're recognized, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Yes, we do have information for the 10 presented by Ms. Lee. The last vote date, most 9 out of the 10 voted in 2021. And then the other voted in 2020. So there were none of these that voted in 2022. And I also want to mention that we've heard from 3 of the 10 as of yesterday, and canceled 3 on the list. So that process has occurred since the information was sent out. I just received that information this morning from staff.
Can you tell us which ones were removed?
Yes. Zenobia Williams, Terry Tanner, and Robert Blair.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Motter, did you want to be recognized? Everyone else has had the opportunity to.
Yeah, I basically want to echo my colleague, Ms. Swift, in her comments, but I also want to just give the public a reminder going back to 2019. We've been grappling with this issue of voter challenges going back to 2019. Shortly after our chair and myself joined the Board of Elections, we had a number of voter challenges. And if any of you in the public have been watching since 2019, you may recall that I raised the issue of how does the state law with respect to voter challenges interplays with the federal law, the National Voter Registration Act, because there has seemingly been such a strong focus on what the state law says, what we should be doing or not be doing as a board, as a department, but very little discussion around what federal law requires in terms of keeping voters on the registration rolls. And so I strongly objected back in 2019 with respect to the way that the challenge procedures were being conducted in 2019. I got a lot of pushback from the then incumbent board members, as well as our former director of the department, whose past practice has been seemingly to not really take into account the federal law requirements. Roll forward a couple of months thereafter, we had a number of lawsuits be filed against this department, as well as our then board members. And of the many issues raised was the specific issue I raised with respect to how the federal law, National Voter Registration Act, interplays with the state voter challenge laws. Roll forward with one of the lawsuits, which involved the NAACP as part of the settlement process. And none of this is any secret by any means, because a lot of this was talked about in prior board meetings. But long story short, we had settlement negotiations with the NAACP. As you may all recall, that happened in 2021. Oh, by the way, as we were working through those negotiations with NAACP, our county attorneys came to us and advised us of 2017 guidance, which basically raised the whole issue that I raised in 2019 regarding the interplay of federal law with state law on the voter challenges, which again has been discussed in this meeting today. So as part of the advice that we got from our county attorneys back in 2020 and 21, we added back to the voter registration rolls as a matter of their recommendation, there being our county attorneys, that we should add the people who were purged under the prior practice related to voter challenges. We added those individuals back to the registration rolls and adopted the 2021 voter challenge procedures, which are now posted on our website. So that's where we find ourselves today. With respect to my feelings then in 2019 and now as I sit here in this chair in 2022, my feelings have remained unchanged with respect to the question of federal law interplaying with state law. And it is my feeling that at this point in time, state law, as Ms. Swift has indicated, doesn't really provide us a lot of guidance on how to deal with this interplay. So we are still sort of at a point where our hands are tied. And it is my view that if we really want something clear cut and as to guide the department and this body, this Board of Registration and Elections, we either need more clear laws or we need case law. So anyone who wishes to pursue this matter in a legal proceeding, I quite honestly welcome it, because perhaps we will get some case law on this very issue, because we are still grappling with this issue now 3 years later. And so I'm sorry for the long discussion, but I think it's important for our audience to know where we've been since 2019, at least since I've been on this board, and to where we are right now currently in 2022. Thank you, and I yield the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Motter. And Mr. Lewis, I'm gonna just make a comment and give everybody one more opportunity to respond to any issues that have come up before we ask for the vote. So I'll recognize you in just a moment. I wanted to also, adding to some of the comments that have already been made about the parameters that guide our authority as a board about when a voter can or cannot be removed from the rolls based on change of address information. That part is pretty clear to me that it has to follow the state's list maintenance process, which is actually ongoing right now, and in my opinion should be allowed to proceed without having to supplement it through challenges. That process is already unfolding. And we're also guided, as my colleague said, by federal law. So, you know, there's a lot of peril in my mind from assuming that somebody named Edward Nelson in DeKalb County is the same Edward Nelson in Florida who registered to vote just because they have the same birthday. And there are probably 100,000 people named Edward Nelson who were born on the same day and live in Florida and Georgia. So there's a reason why the guidelines exist and why we and no board should be willy-nilly removing individuals who challengers do not have personal knowledge of based on NCOA information. And the last point that I will make is that when a challenge is brought, the burden of proof is on the challenger. While I welcome feedback from our staff regarding high-level information, I do not believe that we should set the precedent of having them research when people voted last and a bunch of other things, because again, that is our staff's time, which is supposed to be dedicated to administering the voting process. If a challenger chooses to bring this challenge to this board, the burden of proof is on them, and they need to bring all of the relevant information to make their case, not rely upon our staff or members of this board to make the case for them. So I'll stop there, recognize Mr. Lewis, and then give the rest of my colleagues the opportunity to weigh in if they wish, and we'll take a vote. Mr. Lewis, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. I wanted to just add a comment to Susan's remarks, and I remember her concerns. The particular case that she cited, in that case, it was my opinion at the time that we should actually go to court so that we could have a clear decision from the courts or an opinion from the courts on whether Georgia law was in violation of federal law, but we didn't take that route. We did decide to settle. So we still have no real understanding of how Georgia law fits with federal law. And I think that had we done that, had we gone to court, which would have been a cost to the taxpayers, obviously. And I felt it would have been a proper course, because then we may have had the clear guidelines, which Susan has said, which Ms. Motter has said that we don't have at this time. So we decided to settle in that case, but we still, like she said, we don't have clear guidelines. Up until that case, we always followed Georgia law. So the case was, were we wrong in following Georgia law? So we always followed Georgia law. The petitioners in that case thought that we were violating federal law, and we still don't know if that was the case, because we settled and we've never got an opinion from the court. That's my personal feeling on how that went. I know that other board members may disagree. However, in that case, I feel that there's still a little open-ended as to whether or not we were following the proper procedures. I originally wanted to say that, but just in response to something Ms. Loman-Smith stated, I understand that the burden of proof is on the challengers in these cases. However, I don't feel that they should be burdened with being investigators. In other words, you know, if NCOA or National Change of Address information is not enough, then they may be forced with put in a position of having to directly contact voters which may be a scary position for them to be in. They may have to try to chase down secretaries of states in other states. I think that the public and all of us as members of the public, we establish boards and political organizations to carry out these investigative actions which the public can't carry out. So I do think we have some responsibility in this when a challenge is brought to us, and to not put a county resident in a position of having to be an investigator. And that's all I have for the moment. Oh, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to go back to Ms. Van Der Els. I just want to be clear in my understanding, and that is that challenge voters in DeKalb County, residents in DeKalb County that are bringing a challenge under Georgia law are not allowed to use registration in another state as evidence for someone moving from this state and establishing residence in another state.
It doesn't prevent a voter from bringing a challenge and presenting whatever information they have. The National Voter Registration Act, as interpreted by the Secretary of State, preempts state law in the context of change of address, so that the board cannot remove a voter in a challenge hearing based on a change of address, even if there's evidence of registration in another state, unless that information would come through the Secretary of State from the other state, the new state to which the voter has moved. And that code section is 21 OCGA 21-233, which sets out the process when a voter moves out of state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other board members like to be recognized? Are we ready to make a motion?
I move that the voters be removed from the roll.
You're muted, Mr. Lewis.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of removing the voters noted from 1 to 10, would you accept noting those?
That's fine. Yeah, accept.
Who have not already removed themselves? All in favor of removing those remaining voters, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by raising your right hand and saying nay.
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 That motion fails 3-2. And I believe our precedent from a previous hearing is that we needed an affirmative motion. Is my recollection correct, Ms. Van Der Els?
Yes, it would be best for the record to take a motion to reject the challenges.
Okay. Would anyone else like to make another motion?
I'm sorry, point of order. So the first motion was to reject. We need a motion.
The first motion was to remove.
I'm sorry. We need a motion to reject. Okay.
Mhm.
I move to reject the challenges of the first 10 names listed on the list of challenged voters, excluding voters that have already been removed.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of rejecting the challenges is listed 1 through 10. please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please raise your right hand and signify by saying nay.
Nay.
And that motion passes 3-2. Okay, the second set of challenges, 11 to 20, was brought by another voter. I'll recognize, I'm sorry, what voter challenger? I'll recognize Ms. Smith first before we give the challenger the opportunity to speak.
Okay, yes, the 11 through 20 were submitted by Roger Wyckoff, who's, it looks like is on the call. I'm happy to provide the same information regarding the date that we have, if you would like that at this time. Okay, so we have one of the 11 who last voted in November, on the November 30th, 2020 date, and the other 9 voted January 5th, 2021. So there were no voters on this list from 11 to 20 that voted in this 2022 cycle. We have heard from one of these voters as of this morning. Staff has reported that Dominique Desashura is canceled, to confirm that they had moved to North Carolina.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Wyckoff, you will be recognized for 3 minutes to provide any information that you'd like to this board on the challenges you submitted.
Yeah, hello, good morning, and thank you for having me. I appreciate your time. First, I just want to respond to an earlier comment that we're looking at specific demographics as we review these records. That's not true. And in fact, if you look at the records that I provided, there are no specific demographics isolated. So I think that's offensive and inaccurate. I'm requesting removal of these voters from the DeKalb voter rolls as per Georgia Code on the elections 21-217, Article 6, rules for determining residence. A person shall not be considered to have lost such person's residence who leaves such a person's home and goes into another state, county, or municipality in this state for temporary purposes only, and with the intention of returning, unless a person shall register to vote or perform other acts indicating a desire to change such a person's citizenship or residence. And these voters that I identified were through the National Change of Address record and validated in the Secretary of State, North Carolina registration website. These voters voluntarily provided a change of address record with the U.S. Postal Office and also voluntarily registered to vote in a new state, North Carolina, 2 records. These actions indicate a clear desire to change state residence by these voters and should be removed from the Georgia DeKalb County voter rolls. That concludes my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Are there any voters present who were challenged? Any of the voters that were listed in Mr. Wyckoff's challenge who are present in the meeting today who would like to be recognized?
And if you are present today and would like to be recognized, please identify by using the raise hand feature or #2 if you are on a phone. At this time, I'm seeing no requests, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Metelsky. Okay, board members, any questions or discussion on these challenges? Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Yeah, just one quick question for Ms. Smith. We sent out certified mail to all of these the voters being challenged. Have we heard anything back from them? Have we gotten any receipts back from them, any of these addresses?
Ms. Smith, did you hear Mr. Lewis's question?
Yes. We did not, as of this morning, receive anything returned mail or any calls besides from the one voter that I mentioned earlier.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Would any other board members like to ask questions or weigh in?
I move that we remove these voters from the roll.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove the voters listed from 11 to 20. All in favor? Did I ask for discussion? Sorry. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Thanks. I know I received an email just about 20 minutes prior to our meeting from Mr. Wyckoff, and I don't know if everyone else received those emails, where he added some PDFs that we did not receive in our packet, some additional information for his challenge. So I don't know, did everyone receive that email with that information?
I received it. I received it, and it was consistent with the basis of the challenge being on the change of address. Which, so,
yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of removing the voters? Please signify. Voters listed from 11 to 20. Please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please raise your right hand and signify by saying nay.
Nay.
That vote fails by 3-2. And because we need an affirmative vote, I will ask if anyone else would like to make a motion.
I move to reject the challenge of the voters. I think it's 11 through 20, excluding the voter that was removed, whose name I think was Dominic.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reject the challenge. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of rejecting the challenge of voters listed numbers 11 to 20, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please raise your right hand and signify by saying nay.
Nay.
That motion passes 3-2. And that concludes the voter challenge hearings, and we can move to board comments. I will, I think we did, I can never remember who I did last time. So Ms. Swift, I'll start with you. We'll start from the back there.
Sure, thank you. Just brief comments. I want to thank the staff, Executive Director Smith and her entire team for working through and researching these, doing the research for this hearing. I just want to remind our community, the public, how important it is that people have the right to vote and that and the ability to vote, and that someone not voting every cycle does not mean that they have moved. It does not mean that they should be removed from the rolls of DeKalb County, and that there are rules and laws in place that impact our ability to remove a voter from our rolls, and know that everyone on this board takes this job that we've been appointed to do very, very seriously. And while we may not always agree, we are working together to ensure that DeKalb has the best, election infrastructure and experience for voters in DeKalb County. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. Ms. Motter, you're recognized.
I'll be very brief. I echo Ms. Swift in in terms of thanking our staff. I think our public needs to understand that they have to do a lot of legwork in order to prepare us for these voter challenges. As you can see, as things have been progressing throughout this meeting, our executive director has learned of several cancellations of voter registration for some of the challenge voters. So the work is ongoing, and it can be quite extensive to prepare for these meetings. And then other than that, I welcome these challenges. It gives us an opportunity to discuss these challenges in front of the public so that the public understands what we are grappling with and have been grappling with in terms of what the law requires of us, and a demonstration that this board and our department is doing our very best to keep in compliance with the law. And anything we can do in terms of clarifying what our responsibilities in terms of law and guidance from the state, I welcome that, in addition to any kind of litigation that might create some case law for us, because this is very difficult work. And as far as I'm concerned, sort of echoing Ms. Swiss' comments, when in doubt, if there is a question as to the interplay of federal law versus state law, I prefer to lean on the side of enfranchisement, and that is keeping voters registered so they can exercise their precious right to vote. I yield the floor back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Motter. Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just want to agree with or echo my colleagues in thanking the staff for the work that they've done. We just finished our elections, our primary and the runoffs, and so they've been very busy, and they had to also do the work to put these challenges together. So I appreciate the work that they've done, and I hope that they all know that it's never that the board never wants to put more work on them than they already have. The load that they have is very heavy, and we all recognize that, and we appreciate everything that they do. Also want to thank the challengers who came forward. It's very difficult to come forward and challenge voters in DeKalb County as to whether or not they should remain on the rolls. However, it is my belief that we need the public in order to function properly. I mean, we just saw in our last election, in our primary, how important public input was in alerting us to the need that we required a recount in an election. And so the public can come, I feel that it's very important for the public, members of the public, to come forward and always talk to us about their concerns, even when it means that they may challenge other voters on the rolls. I think that when they come, there's an understanding that it's as much of a protection of voters' right to vote by ensuring that we have up-to-date voter rolls as it is to ensure that we do not remove people from the rolls when they should not be removed. But once again, thank you for everyone for their input and for helping us bring this meeting together. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Vice Chair Jester, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of points. Again, I do want to thank the challengers. I also want to address that any notion that there's any kind of discriminatory factor being at play here when any of these challenges are being brought is just ridiculous on its face. We certainly don't have that information. And I saw in the list, in addition to not having any kind of demographic information, I certainly saw that both parties were represented in voters that were being challenged. So that is just ridiculous. And I regret that anyone suggested that during comment time. my also advice is that I think that what we're seeing here is sort of the death of common sense, because the common plain fact before us would lead us to believe that we need to really clean up our voting rolls, that I think they're very ill maintained. I don't think this is necessarily a DeKalb problem alone, but it's clear, it's very clear, having gone through this process a few times, that if this board was, we're not going to remove Mickey Mouse from the voter rolls if we saw him, with his new voting registration card swimming in his pool in Orlando. So that's not going to, we're not going to do that. It's going to be a 3-2 vote every time. So I think it's a waste of time to continue to have these hearings. This is my advice to challengers. Our lawyers are going to go into, contortions that are, gold medal winning gymnast performances at Olympics. So again, we're not going to get any kind of common sense advice from the legal team on that, and I'm disappointed in that. That being said, do I think there's clarity everywhere in the law? No, I don't think there's clarity everywhere in the law, but I do think we've just witnessed the death of common sense here, because we know, we can see things that we could at least be moving people to inactive roles that we're not. So I think the whole process is sort of silly at this point. My advice to challengers would be, to some of my colleagues' point, maybe litigate, maybe pursue your case at the state level, because I don't think at the county board here we're going to see any kind of differences. Nothing's going to change. We're going to continue to have the same kind of hearings and talk about, whatever we talk about. I think for every, voter rolls not being maintained well also dilutes everyone else's vote. So it's also an enfranchisement problem on the other side. There's an opportunity cost there. So, I think this is kind of a farcical process at this point. So again, my advice would be to pursue other avenues for the maintenance of these voter rolls, whether it's lobbying your legislator to change the rules or get more guidance, or talk to Secretary of State's office, litigate, any of those other things. But I don't think this board is gonna have any different outcome with these voter challenge hearings. So as the mom of 3 kids with a lot going on, I don't want to waste anybody's time either. And so that's how I feel about it. That being said, I want the public to know I adore my colleagues, even when we disagree. I think they're funny, interesting, lovely people. And so I don't want there to be any kind of, there's no personal issues here. This is just sort of a philosophical difference of opinion here. So that's where we are. And I do appreciate staff. I think Ms. Smith, I do want to commend her and her team for, while I disagree with their recommendation, I understand why they came to it. I understand, what they're being fed by the legal team and the position that they are being put in. So I respect that, and I want them to know that. I do know they work very hard, and I want to acknowledge all that they did during the last election cycle, and also all the work my colleagues put in during the last election cycle. That is really appreciated by me. So I do want to end on that positive note, despite our differences. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment, and I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay. I'm sorry, I got a request. Oh, okay. Colleagues, I received a request. I just didn't see the commissioner to be acknowledged, and I want to get your okay to acknowledge the commissioner before we end. Any opposition? Okay, I'm not seeing any opposition. And Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson, you're recognized to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. And I want to say to all of the board, I really appreciate your diligence and commitment in assisting, navigating the citizens of DeKalb with their right to vote. And I would just like to say this, this country is in a bad situation, in many respects. The only thing that I would like to see as chair of the Ops Committee is that everyone have a reasonable right to vote. And we cannot premise that on the lie that the Georgia elections were stolen. And we know that all of this legislation was implemented after the 2020 election. Now, we may disagree as to why it was initiated, but I can say that throughout the many courts in this country and in Georgia, it was determined that there were none, if little fraud in this election, as well as elections throughout the country. So, I mean, that can't be ignored. We as lawmakers and I as a commissioner have to keep my eyes on the prize. And that is why do we have all of these election suppression laws coming out through the country? And so we're working with a legislature that have enacted these laws, and I could appreciate what DeKalb County is going through. But I wanted to say that to give some context about where we are right now, and to just to dismiss it like certain people are not targeted. I think it's putting our heads in the sand, because if you are awoke, if you see what you see where these laws are driven from, you see the effect that they're having. And so I just want to commend you all for your diligence in trying to trying to give the citizens one vote. And that's all that I ask, is to give everyone the right to vote. That's the American way. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will just conclude my comments addressing quickly just a couple of issues. I'd like to first thank our staff for once again providing us with helpful context and timely information about these challenges to assist us in making our decisions today. I will restate that when a challenge is brought, the burden of proof is on the challenger. And the word burden means something. That means it's heavy. It is a requirement. It is not supposed to be easy. It is a responsibility that the challenger has to ensure that they have accurate information. Our department is not staffed to be investigators of people's addresses and location. There are procedures and law in place regarding how people register to vote. That is put in place by the state and managed and overseen by the state. We are a limb, if you will, of the state body, and they set those laws and procedures, and we are limited in our ability, and I believe we should be limited in our ability and willingness to take away someone's right to vote. I do not believe that my vote is diluted by the number of people on the roll, because that presumes that people are voting improperly. That's the only way that the vote would be diluted, if somebody was voting improperly. And we have no evidence that that is the case. Despite lots of searching, there is no evidence that that is the case. So I would just say that, I think that common sense is to err on the side of enfranchisement. I am the descendant of people who had to fight with blood and tears and loss of life to get the right to vote. I absolutely will not sit in a position of authority and take that right away from someone based on supposition and a lack of personal knowledge. And I hope that if there are future challenges that are brought, that you understand that we recognize our burden to consider this information and consider what democracy means before we make a decision. So I'll conclude my comments there and ask if we can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We stand.
Aye.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.